just sort of speaks to how fresh this fire is. The call came in just about an hour ago now, so we don't know too much yet about the origin, but it certainly did escalate quickly, getting escalated to 4 alarm just a couple of minutes ago. I want to show you, I'll just step out of the shot here. A lot of the fire efforts are concentrated on the roof area. The firefighters have been using hoses, they've been using ladders to get up there. There's heavy smoke in the area, but right now it's sort of turned from black to sort of like a grayish smoke, so that I'm not quite sure yet as far as what that tells us in terms of their progress being made on the flames here. But this is a very old school. There is lots of wood in there, I'm told. Lots of areas that can get really, really hot and give some trouble for firefighters trying to knock down these flames. Now, we do know that the Jones Avenue School has been under construction. At least a portion of the roof was undergoing some renovations. And when we first got to the scene here, I was just scoping it out and having a look at who's around. I did see a group of several construction workers who identified themselves actually as roofers. So there is going to be an investigation, obviously, into the cause and the origin. We certainly will learn more, but first things first, they have to make sure that all the hot spots are out. We are going to stay on top of this story for you. One important thing that we can tell you, though, is that everybody was evacuated safely. This is an adult school, an ESL school. No children were here. Everybody got out safely. That's certainly an important thing at this point, but we will stay on top of the progress. I'll send it back to you for now, though, Dwight.
Yeah, good to hear everybody got out safely. Thank you for that, Ali.
I was just shocked. I didn't know what to do, what to say, nothing.
It was a shock. Everyone that heard it, everybody thought it was fake. Nobody believed it in the beginning.
Disbelief at first. I wouldn't imagine ever this to come. Last time, I was literally speechless. I couldn't say anything about it.
Friends and families still trying to understand what happened as they mourn a high school student remembered as a beautiful soul. A funeral was held today for 18-year-old Rizwan Wadi. He was the victim of a shooting at a prom after party early Friday morning. Police have not laid any charges in his murder, but they have 2 suspects in custody, a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old. Greg Ross is live for us tonight from the Islamic Foundation of Toronto, where Wadi's funeral was held this afternoon. Greg, you spoke with some of his friends. What are they telling you about this young man?
Well, Dwight, many of them still in shock tonight, still trying to understand how something like this could happen and why something like this would happen. They tell me that Wadi was not the kind of person that they would have expected to be involved with something like this. I'm told he was an avid hockey player. He played both ball hockey and ice hockey. He was very involved in the Muslim community here. And it's also very clear that he was a popular guy, just judging by the sheer volume of people who showed up here today to pay their last respects. 3 days after he was shot and killed, hundreds of family and friends came to say one last goodbye to 18-year-old Rizwan Wadi.
He was a really good guy. It's just they took him too young.
He was a good person, like genuine, honest. Tragedy.
He was a good person, hard-working man, you know, good heart. He's the type of person to feed you if you didn't have any money in your back and nothing to eat. You know, he cared for you.
York Region District School Board sent out a statement today confirming Wadi was a student at Maple High School in Vaughan. It said, "A tragedy like this deeply affects our communities. Our focus in the coming days and weeks will be on providing support to our students and staff members." Similar support was offered to students at Bill Carruthers High School in Markham.
There's a lot of guidance counselors in from other schools helping out with this process.
Thursday night's prom after party was hosted by students from Carruthers. A number of grade 11 and 12 students say that they attended.
You had to pay $10 to get in, and you had to tell the people hosting it, and there was a list.
But they say things quickly got out of hand when students from other schools started to show up.
I'd say there were more people from other schools than from our school.
I couldn't even breathe in there. Like that's how many people were in there. Like everywhere you went, there was someone bumping into you.
Most of the Carruthers students say they left long before the shooting.
And there was just a lot of random people there that no one knew. So it was just sketchy. We got out pretty quick.
You had a bad feeling?
Yeah. We were there for like 20 minutes and then we left.
At this point, it's still not clear why Wadi was at this party or what his connection was there. At this point, nobody has been charged in his death. Now, there were 2 people who were arrested about 30 minutes after the shooting. They were just about a kilometer away. Police say they found them with guns, a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old. They are still in police custody, but at this point, they are only facing a number of gun-related charges, Dwight.
Thank you for that, Greg. Years before zeroing in on Bruce McArthur, police believe notorious killer Luca Magnotta might be connected to one of his crimes. That's according to newly unsealed court documents. John Lancaster has the details.
The documents show that Toronto police launched Project Houston back in 2012 after 3 men vanished from Toronto's gay village. At the time, police had a suspect in mind, and a tip the suspect may have had help from notorious killer Luca Magnotta. At the time, Magnotta was suspected of the murder of Chinese international student Yun Lin. Magnotta had mailed some of Lin's remains to several politicians and schools. Police spent 2 years chasing down this rabbit hole, investigating whether Magnotta and the suspect may have cannibalized Skandaraj Navaratnam, who went missing in Toronto in 2010. In the end, both the suspect and Magnotta were cleared. We also know that around the same time, Toronto police had identified Bruce McArthur as having ties to all 3 missing men. They interviewed McArthur, but didn't consider him a likely suspect. In fact, by 2014, they abandoned Project Houston. 5 more men went missing after 2014, and by 2017, McArthur became the prime suspect. Police even used cadaver dogs to try and locate victims' remains at properties where the landscaper had worked at. They were unsuccessful at that point. Earlier this year, McArthur pled guilty to murdering 8 men, including Navaratnam. McArthur is now serving a life sentence. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
The mansion where Honey and Barry Sherman were murdered is now almost completely demolished. This is what's left. A request to tear down the house was put to the city's building department in February. An agent representing the family said the vacant 2-story property near Bayview on the 401 has bad memories and stigma. The letter to the city also said that no one will purchase the home since the Shermans' bodies were found dead beside the pool in December 2017.
I hear Andre go to sleep peacefully, and then I hear Josh laying awake in his bed coughing himself to sleep.
They're brothers with the same deadly disease, but only one of them has access to possible life-saving medication. We'll bring you their story and our Go Public investigation a little later in the show. Some $3 billion in annual funding is at stake for Ontario's colleges and universities. The Ford government wants to tie that funding to performance. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has found out what that means. So, Mike, what will universities and colleges have to actually do to get some of this funding?
So they're going to have to prove that they can perform on a number of measures. And a big question was, what are these measures actually going to be? What are they going to have to do? So one thing is the earnings that the graduates make after they finish their programs. Another thing is the employment rate. Are graduates actually getting jobs in the fields that they were trained in? And a third thing is the funding that comes to the colleges and universities from industry. So those are going to be the kind of measures that the government is going to be looking at. We spoke to the minister responsible, and she said that this is all about making sure that university and college graduates are prepared for the workforce.
Students and families work very hard and make a lot of sacrifices so that their students can attend university college. And what they're ending up with in some instances is programs and degrees that are not necessarily leading to employment. And employers are looking for graduates who can fill their spaces. So we need to solve that issue.
And this is going to start very soon. The tying to performance that funding is going to start in September of next year.
All right, we heard from the government there. We want to hear now what the colleges and universities have to say about all of this.
Well, Dwight, there's a lot of fear, actually, a fear of the unknown. Now, the colleges that I spoke to, they actually are a little bit more confident, but university professors, they seem to be quite fearful that somehow what this is going to do is it's going to drive universities away from some of their reason for being, create more programs in things like engineering and computer science and less of the more liberal arts, things like philosophy.
What could the effect, though, and that's a big question, this have on universities moving forward?
Well, you know, there's some research, Dwight, that says that the universities actually become more responsive to the needs of students and more responsive to the workplace, but that all depends on how the program is organized. And I spoke to one expert who says that the Ford government has kind of rushed this out.
We don't know how they're going to score indicators. We don't know how they're going to weight indicators. We don't even really know what some of these indicators mean because they're really badly described in the documents. So it's far too early to get a sense of whether or not this will be a positive or a negative measure as a result.
And one last thing, the universities and colleges are going to be measured against their own performance. So it's not like you're going to have a university that produces engineers and computer science graduates tested and marked against a more liberal arts kind of university. So it's not going to pit them against one another. At least that's what the government says.
All right, we'll keep following this. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Critics are slamming Ontario's PCs today, saying taxpayers were kept in the dark about 2 recent trade missions. As Lisa Shing explains, it's the transparency, not the travel, that's causing a stir.
These photos were posted to Economic Minister Todd Smith's Twitter account on a trade mission to India.
I'm a little jet lagged today, so I'm a little grumpier than I normally am, but...
Evidently, so are critics. The government is under fire for lacking transparency about 2 trips in recent weeks, the latest being Smith's visit with various businesses in India.
I posted every day that I was there on Twitter.
Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal. Governments go on trade missions all the time. What's atypical is that the public wasn't finding out about these missions until late in the game, and media, who are sometimes asked to cover them, weren't extended the invite. Smith gave a couple of explanations today.
There's a federal election underway in India right now, and we didn't want to interfere in the federal election. This was not to be a photo op. I think we've seen governments in the past go over, and it's been all about the photo op.
While Smith was likely referencing Justin Trudeau's problem-plagued trip there last year, the opposition doesn't believe any of it.
Governments go on trade missions. That's part of doing the business of government. But they have to be transparent about that.
The government is not saying how much the India trip cost, who exactly went, and what exactly came of it. And the criticism is being compounded because there's also little information about the Premier and Finance Minister's trade mission to New York.
And Premier Ford is in New York proudly promoting the changes our government is implementing to make Ontario open for business.
Except Ontario News Now was there. It's the taxpayer-funded, government-run social media channel some critics call propaganda. The Liberals call it something else.
Taxpayers are footing the bill for Doug Ford's vanity station.
Smith's office tells me, unlike the previous Liberal government that sent 23 people to India, Smith only went with 4 staff that were absolutely necessary to save taxpayers' money. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
2 young brothers share a devastating genetic disease that makes breathing difficult, but only one is getting potentially life-saving medication. Rosa Marcatelli now on what's stopping people from getting the drugs they need.
That's 6-year-old Joshua with the glasses and his 8-year-old brother Andre. Both have a fatal genetic disease, cystic fibrosis, that attacks their lungs. Only Andre has access to a potentially life-saving medication. He got into a long-term drug trial for one of 3 gene-modifying drugs. Only a few Canadian kids got in. His little brother didn't.
When I put them to bed at night and I hear Andre go to sleep peacefully, and then I hear Josh laying awake in his bed coughing himself to sleep.
Few patients can afford the $250,000 a year price tag, and few provinces cover the cost of the drugs. The provinces that do put severe restrictions on who qualifies. In Ontario, less than 2% of pediatric patients do. No adults.
1, 2, 3, blow.
About 4,200 Canadians have cystic fibrosis. Unlike a lot of other countries, Canada doesn't have a special process for evaluating drugs for rare diseases.
Well, it's a heartbreaking situation.
Critics say that testing criteria is built only for drugs that treat more common illnesses and can hold large trials.
We can't do that in small populations. And so often when our evidence goes to the table for government to look at, they say there's not enough evidence.
Absolutely shameful.
Then there's the price. Chris McLeod is the lawyer heading up a class action in BC over access to one of the drugs, Orkambi. He says that $250,000 is just the sticker price no one actually pays. But Canada hasn't bothered to negotiate.
We're the only developed country that is not, either doesn't have a deal or isn't negotiating a deal.
Minister, Maddie Van Stone is a very courageous girl. But as courageous as she is, she needs your help. She needs your help to get access to a life-saving drug.
That's Christine Elliott when she was opposition health critic in Ontario, pushing for coverage of one of these drugs. As health minister, she has not expanded coverage, saying the government is continuously reviewing evidence that supports funding of new medications.
We have a medication right now that half the population could benefit from, and we're not getting access to it.
The drug company, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, didn't say why the cost is so high. Cystic Fibrosis Canada says it's often because developing medications for rare diseases is so expensive and the market is so small. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
They may not have reached their peak yet, but they still are beautiful. You're looking at the cherry blossoms at Trinity Bellwoods Park. It was a gorgeous day today, and these trees are just adding to it. If you haven't been able to catch them yet, don't worry. You have about a week to try and see them at various locations across the GTA. That is, of course, Colette, if the heavy rain doesn't come and knock them off the trees. But you know what? Let's talk about the beautiful sunshine and warm temps out there today before we get to all of that later.
Yeah, let's take a moment to savor what we've had, and hopefully you got out there to see those blossoms, because Dwight's right. We got to talk about what's yet to come. But today, just a gorgeous day. I'm showing you the temperature progression here. So this is at 6 a.m. We were in single digits, 9, but watch what happens by 10 a.m. We doubled that, 18 degrees at 10 a.m. this morning. And back then, we still had some of that sunshine too, even into the afternoon hours. 23 unofficially the high today, and that was at 1 a.m. And now we're sitting with our temperature at 20 degrees. Markham 21, Hamilton 20 degrees still. So not a bad evening, but the clouds have certainly pushed in. We saw a weak line of showers earlier, and now some of the more main line of this next system that's coming in. So it's a cold front. The leading edge of a new air mass that's going to be a colder one is moving into our area. So what that means for us, we're going to have the wet conditions through the night tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow, that potential, although they'll mostly start to push to the south of us. So around the southern part of the Golden Horseshoe, you'll continue to have some of that rain into tomorrow morning. We'll still have the cloud cover back towards the GTA. That erodes into the afternoon hours. So we get into a situation with mostly sunny skies by tomorrow afternoon. A good day in that sense. However, the temperature, instead of in the low 20s after 8 tonight, our high tomorrow, Dwight, is going to be 15. And I'll have more on that next system that might knock those blossoms off coming up.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Colette's happy about this, and so am I. The Raptors evened things up last night in Philly, beating the 76ers 101-96.
Kawhi. Gasol there. They get the switch. Kawhi takes it, Graham makes it. Big time bucket.
Oh, we needed that one. Another dominant performance for Kawhi, leading the pack with 39 points. Marc Gasol and Kyle Lowry also putting in work with a combined 30 points between them. The second round playoff series is now tied 2-2. Our Raptors play on home court tomorrow for Game 5. Today, Danny Green talked about the importance of winning at home.
Yeah, we have to win if we want to get out of this, and go into the next round. So it's very important that, I'm sure our fans will be there. They're going to show up. It's very important that we show up and protect it, know that we go back to Philly, hopefully up 3-2.
That's it. Fans show up, you show up. Tip-off, 8 p.m. tomorrow at Scotiabank Arena.
Mother and baby are doing incredibly well. It's been the most amazing experience I could ever possibly imagine.
Proud papa, it's a boy. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex announced the birth of their first child. Plus, how other people around the world are congratulating the couple. We'll bring you those stories about the newest royal after this break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
You likely will have heard by now there's a new addition to the royal family. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and Prince Harry are the proud parents of their first child, a boy born early this morning. Renee Filipponi reports from outside Windsor Castle.
It is my honour to congratulate the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on the arrival of a baby boy.
The Duchess of Sussex went into labor in the early morning and delivered the newest royal at 5:26 a.m. Anticipation for the baby's arrival has been growing for weeks, with Meghan past her due date. And today, royal fans finally got what they were waiting for.
It's a complete shock. We're all feeling quite euphoric and we're all getting a bit drunk here.
And that it's a boy, was that exciting news for you?
Yes, very exciting. And I quite like the name Marvin.
I think I'd rather it be more public, just because it's more exciting, and for everybody here as well, like it was for the wedding.
Harry and Meghan wanted this to be a private affair. Few details were shared with the public about the baby's arrival. And unlike the birth of William and Kate's children, who were brought out to throngs of press soon after their birth, it will be a couple of days before the public get to see this royal baby. Prince Harry spoke to the press as the release went out that the couple had welcomed a boy.
A very healthy boy. Mother and baby are doing incredibly well. It's been the most amazing experience I could ever possibly imagine. How any woman does what they do is beyond comprehension, but we're both absolutely thrilled.
No name yet, but people here have been placing bets for months. Some of the top contenders right now are traditional names like Albert, Arthur, and James, but they could go with something more modern and shake things up, which is something the couple have been known to do. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Windsor.
As Renee noted, the birth of the royal baby was announced on social media, and that news saw social media platforms go into overdrive as friends, family, and celebrities expressed congratulations. Yana Adzik is here with the details. So how did the celebs respond when a fellow actress, right,
Yes.
now Duchess, is having a baby? There must have been a few of them.
Listen, I will say that there is also the share out there of people on social media saying, come on, are we really talking so much about a baby? We
Another
all
baby.
have babies. But this baby is more special than your baby and my baby. We all know
According
that.
to all these people, anyway.
All right, so let me give it to you. Her co-star Patrick J. Adams, he said, just heard the world got heavier by 7 pounds and 3 ounces. Much love to him and his incredible parents. Learned firsthand 7 months ago how transformational becoming a parent is, and couldn't be happier for Meghan and Harry as they begin this adventure. Play date soon? Oh yes, he could ask for that. And then there's another one out there that's bestie. This is after especially the Invictus Games. Congratulations, Meghan and Harry. Barack and I are so thrilled for both of you and can't wait to meet him. Hashtag royal baby. Okay, so let's take a look at another famous face and name, Ryan Seacrest. It's a boy. Congrats to Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. The royal baby is 7th in line to the British throne and this latest entry in the race for the Iron Throne. It's a little reference to Game of Thrones there. And Liam Payne from One Direction said, congratulations to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on the birth of your baby boy. And the former One Direction member, he wrote, so happy for the both of you. Okay, let's end it with something light. Ellen DeGeneres wrote, the royal baby's here. Congrats, Meghan Markle, Prince Harry. The baby is 7th in line for the throne, which is crazy because right now I'm 7th in line for the key-making kiosk at my grocery store.
Hilarious.
I know.
Welcome, baby.
We did it, Dwight.
You're going to have some pictures when we finally get to see said
Oh,
baby?
we will bring you pictures. Everyone's going to see those pictures very soon.
Thanks, Yelena.
Talk to you.
And for our part, the CN Tower will be lit purple tonight. That's to welcome the newest member of the royal family a little way from Toronto to say congratulations to the Duchess, who used to live here, of course, and the Duke of Sussex. And when we come back, we will take you live to the scene of this 4-alarm blaze. This is the Jones Avenue Adult School. It's on Jones, just south of the Danforth. We'll have an update. You can still see the flames on the roof there. We'll have an update from Toronto Fire after the break. As we told you off the top of the show, firefighters are battling a 4-alarm blaze in Greektown right now at the Jones Avenue Adult School. We understand that one of the platoon chiefs talking right now. Let's listen in.
I will say that initially upon arrival, our crews removed 7 roofers from the roof, rescued them using one of our aerial ladders. So fortunately, everyone that was on the roof has been brought down. They're all safe. Our crews have made an aggressive entry into the building, have completed the primary search, which indicates we have no indication that there is anyone in the building, so that's good news as well. So as we stand right now, no indication of any injuries. We'll certainly do our best to keep it that way. Presently operating at a 4th alarm. We're moving some apparatus around, repositioning some aerial ladders, and we've got a complicated operation that's going to go for an extended period of time.
Chief Peg, can you just talk us through what we're seeing right now behind you? Because there are open flames right there. We're talking about really thick smoke coming up, and just how difficult is this for your crew?
So this is a very challenging fire for our crew. There's very, very heavy smoke, as you can see, heavy smoke emanating. There are flames now coming through the roof, which creates some additional hazard for our folks. So that's why we're operating defensively. We don't have any crews operating inside the building at this time. It's primarily, at this point, an aerial master stream attack. So that will stay that way certainly until we can deem it safe. But I would just suggest there are some people on the sidewalk in the area. There's no need for anyone to be in the smoke here. So I would ask, I know that we're taking up a lot of space. The area is very congested, but my request is if you're in this area, if you're in the smoke, please move into clean air. Stay behind the yellow tape, and we'll do our very best to keep everybody safe.
Chief Peg, we're live on CBC Toronto right now. I wanted to ask you about at least I know it's preliminary now, but the origin of the fire. Did it start on the roof where those workers were working?
Yeah, at this point, I have no idea. So our investigations team will look into that. We do know that there were roofers working. We know that because we actually rescued them off the roof with an aerial ladder. So certainly something we'll look into. At this point, of course, our entire focus and attention is moving towards and focused on making sure that everybody's safe and doing our very best to bring this fire under control.
Can you confirm just what type of building this is? We're being told it's an adult learning center.
That's my understanding as well. It's been described to me as an adult learning center. It is a very large building, so we're dealing, like you can see, a very significant volume of fire and a very significant volume of smoke. So definitely a challenging operation for our crew.
And because of the location of this school, I mean, we're surrounded by a lot of homes. We're on a residential street. Are you suggesting that people who live very close vicinity to the building, should they leave their homes?
At this point, we have not issued any evacuation order. We're in consultation with our colleagues at Toronto Police. They're helping us keep people clear of the sidewalk. If that changes, we'll ask each of you in the media to help us spread that news. At this point, no. But as I said, I would suggest anyone that's in the area, if you're in the smoke, now is the time to leave. Close the windows in your home, make sure that that's done. If anything escalates or we get any indication that for a safety perspective we need to implement an evacuation zone, we will. But at this point, really just asking people to stay away from the immediate area and stay out of the smoke plume.
Is there any indication yet how much of the building?
So, Dwight, I just wanted to take the opportunity to show you what's happening now on the roof here. You're looking at a water cannon. So that's Toronto Fire concentrating their efforts on the roof there. Just when you think this fire is under control and that the smoke dissipates, a ball of flames just bursts through the roof and it gets smokier. Let's just listen back in here with the Toronto Fire Chief, Matthew Peg.
There's certainly, the roof is compromised for sure. We have removed all of our firefighters from the roof. Everyone is now working off either aerial ladders or ground ladders. I don't anticipate that we'll put anyone back on the roof, and if that happens later on, it certainly won't be until the hazard's been eliminated and we can get a good look. So there is a there is a bunch of equipment on the roof, but none of our firefighters are there, and we'll make sure that they stay safe. So I would anticipate the defensive attack you're seeing is the tactic that we'll use for the foreseeable future, and that's really the combination of aerial streams and ground-based hose lines.
Because this was an adult school, do we know if there were night classes? We know that the call came in around 5 p.m. Were there students and staff inside the building?
I have not been briefed with respect to what the programming is tonight. As I arrived here and spoke with our command team, they've assured me that our crews have been through all of the floors in the building inside. There's been what we call a primary search, which is a very quick sweep. That's good news. That means we have no indication that anyone is left inside. no indication that anyone's missing. So we'll continue along with our operations. At some point, I'm sure we'll get some information relating to the projected use of the building.
And Chief, this looks like a very old building. Can you talk about the fact that that may be a factor as well when it comes to tackling this fire?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the age and the construction type of the building, and the content inside and what's going on the roof right now, all of that will contribute. So until we can get the fire under control and ultimately extinguished and get in to have a look, we're not really going to understand. We'll deal with what's here. So our goal, as always, is to stay ahead. So that's why you're seeing us position aerial ladders and put crews in place to make sure that this fire doesn't spread to the adjoining buildings. That's going to be one of our top priorities.
Any indication that this could be upgraded to a 5-alarm?
At this point, it's still a 4th in the command post. It's possible. These are demanding fires on our crews, so we'll really see what happens with the development and spread of the fire. It's possible it goes to 5. At this point, we're still at 4.
Have you been able to determine whether there's sprinklers in there?
Let's just see, we have a couple more questions here.
No indication as to the presence of any protection systems in the building yet. That'll form part of our investigation later. At this point, I don't know. I'll update you further as we go. Thank you.
So you're just listening to Toronto Fire Chief Matthew Pegg there. Fire crews are going to be here for a lot longer. As I said, just as you think maybe the flames have been knocked down, more fire just shoots through the roof. So they're going to be here throughout the evening, but amazingly, no one was injured in this. Everybody was evacuated. 7 roofers rescued from the roof. I'll send it back to you for now, Dwight.
Yeah, certainly a stubborn blaze there at Jones and Danforth. Thank you for that, Ali.
You got it.
Live update there for you. An 18-year-old man is dead and 3 people are in custody after a stabbing in Scarborough today.
The information we have thus far, which is very preliminary, is that this is a contained incident. It was some sort of an altercation between a group of individuals. One more thing I want to add is, at this point, we do not believe this is in any way or form related to the school property here nearby for Sir Wilfrid Laurier. Again, this is very preliminary in the investigation.
Police say they were called to Guildwood Parkway and Livingston Road. Just after 12:15, the man was found with severe injuries and rushed to hospital where he later died. 2 men and 1 female were arrested at the scene. Police are trying to determine their role, if any, in the stabbing. No charges have been laid yet. And the police officer was taken to hospital this morning after a 5-vehicle crash in Brampton. The officer's cruiser was one of the cars involved. It happened just after 8 near Dixie Road and Williams Parkway. The officer had suffered non-life-threatening injuries. 2 other people were also taken to hospital as a precaution. More people per capita in Canada are killed by guns in our big cities over our rural communities, correct? Actually, that's not correct. The National is starting a series tonight on gun violence in this country. Terrence McKenna is leading that coverage, and he joins us now. And Terrence, you discovered some really interesting information that might surprise us when it comes to the role that guns plays in these urban and then rural communities in our country.
Mm-hmm. Well, for one thing, gun violence, when you are estimating the number of, for example, homicides, 3 times higher when there is a gun in the home. The rate of homicide is 3 times higher. When you're looking at suicide, the rate of homicide is 5 times higher when there is a gun in the home. And of course, they have more guns in rural communities, and therefore the rates for both of those things are higher.
The federal government is currently considering a ban on handguns. We've been hearing a lot about this, and also assault rifles. Something we've talked a lot about in Toronto, but you went to Owen Sound to get another perspective on this.
It's always been the case that there's a rural-urban divide on this issue, and so I went to a member of parliament who has got into politics many years ago to fight against gun control, Larry Miller from Owen Sound, and spent a little time with him.
Anyway, so did you find some cattle you like today?
In the coffee shop adjacent to the auction, most people would like to tell city folk to take a hike on the gun issue.
I totally get and I totally understand why people in downtown Toronto have more of a fear or dislike for handguns or guns in general than somebody in rural Canada. And the difference is understanding. the rural-urban divide, and yes, it's there. What the observation of most people who live in rural Canada is that the people in the city don't give a damn about our way of life as long as their way of life is being looked after, and that bugs the heck out of us.
Okay, there's also some interesting information in your series on the role gender plays in rural communities with these guns. We'll save that for your story tonight. But tonight's story is just the first part of this series. What else can we expect here?
We have something on smuggling guns too. There's been some amazing cases, for example, in Windsor, where gun smugglers were hiding guns in the bumpers of cars of cross-border shoppers and then retrieving them with a GPS device on the other side, and many other ways of just guys with backpacks going through the woods with lots of guns. So it's quite revealing on how guns get into the country.
Thanks, Terrence. And you can watch Terrence's full report on gun violence tonight on The National. That's at 10 p.m. on CBC Television, or you can also catch it on our CBC Gem.
Did you know that much of the food that you buy from independent markets and enjoy at GTA restaurants comes from this facility? I'm Tally Ricci, and coming up, as the province reviews the Ontario Food Terminal, we talk to people here about what they do and why they're feeling a little uneasy.
And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We will be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
Some families will be getting more from the Canada Child Tax Benefit come July. The federal government has announced another increase for the second year in a row.
Just to give you an example, a middle-class family in this area earning $55,000 with 2 children to look after, on July 2019 will receive an additional $30 per month. That's in addition to the $550 that family would be receiving already.
The increase begins July 20th. That's just 3 months before voters head to the polls in October. The feds say nearly 3.7 million families use the program. With this increase, the new maximum benefit per child under 6 years will be $6,639. For children from 6 to 17 years, the new cap will be $5,602. A feeling of unease is growing at the Ontario Food Terminal. The Etobicoke warehouse is currently under review by the Ford government. The terminal is the largest wholesale fruit and produce distribution center in the country, has been running now for 65 years. Talia Ritchie has more.
Bustling before the sun rises, this is kind of like a stock exchange for fruits and vegetables. Thousands of farmers, wholesalers, and buyers gather at the Ontario Food Terminal daily, moving 2 billion pounds of produce a year, which ultimately ends up at independent grocers and restaurants.
All the growers display their product out front here, and customers are walking by and deciding what is the best product for them. They're picking and choosing what makes sense. And they'll negotiate the price with the grower direct. What this allows them to do is sell to their independent customers, being grocers, restaurants, different food service providers as well.
These days, the normally cheerful community within the terminal is clouded by an air of uncertainty.
I've never seen anything like this before. I know it's come up in government before, but never has everybody been as concerned about it as they are right now.
The concern is centered around 2 short paragraphs within the PC's last provincial budget, stating it's exploring options to modernize the facility. Worst case scenario for many in the building, the potential sale of the land.
People are always apprehensive when people are examining things. They don't realize we've been examining it by the board all along. The ministry has made it more public that they're looking at it. But when there's a public-private cooperation and the ministry is seeking out stakeholders' input, I don't think they really have anything to worry about.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Food wouldn't confirm or deny whether the complex would be moved, but did insist there will be a terminal moving forward.
I think it's very important to recognize the certainty of the project we're doing is we're going to end up with a food terminal that we require the people in it, working in it, will be needed, and the people who are bringing in their goods will have a place to market them.
The ministry says it's still in the process of gathering research. As they do, advocates for the terminal have been gathering signatures for a petition aimed at preserving the facility. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Talia's story there make us think a little bit about maybe growing some stuff in our own backyards or on our balconies, Colin. Can we get some weather for that, please?
Well, sort of.
The wet part of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm
water.
thinking while you're talking to me, well, we need sunshine, but yeah, you need the rain as well. We got more of that coming. At least we had the sunshine today, right? So having a look at our headlines, just kind of giving you an idea what's coming up over the next little while. In the short term, we've got these rain showers through the evening into overnight, early tomorrow morning. Those should be wrapping up, except for areas further south around the southern part of the Golden Horseshoe. You'll hold on to them a little bit longer. Then we're going to get into a clearing trend. So we'll see some sun coming back into the afternoon. That's good for growing things. But the rain comes back as well towards midweek, especially into Thursday. We could see some Wednesday, but Thursday, some heavier rain and some cooler temperatures as well. Nothing like we experienced today. Unofficially, that high up to 23. If you're wondering, the record is way up there around 32 degrees, so we weren't even close in that sense. Right now, we're sitting at 20 for the city. There are those rain showers. This is along a cold front, out ahead of a cold front that's coming through. So we're exchanging air masses, meaning the new air mass that's coming in is going to be colder than the one that's been in place. So along with it, along that dividing line of those 2 air masses, we get some of the wet weather. You can see some of the almost training that occurs along the front into tomorrow morning. That's why I say it stays wet longer to the south of the GTA. We keep some of the cloud cover early, and then we start to see that breaking up into the afternoon. We get the sunshine. It looks like a pretty nice afternoon, quite frankly. Wednesday looks good, at least to start things off, and then stuff starts to change later on Wednesday as the next system approaches. So overnight tonight, looking at pretty mild lows, 7 to 8 degrees with those wet conditions. And then tomorrow afternoon, because we get into some clearing, especially through Mississauga over towards Toronto, Oshawa, should hit about 15 degrees. It's not bad. It's just not like today. A little bit cooler where you're going to keep that cloud cover and some of that rain a bit longer. So St. Catharines, you may not get above about 13 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Wednesday, as that next system moves in, Thursday, really some windy conditions with an easterly wind and only 7 degrees for the high. But Friday, we start to rebound and not looking too bad into next weekend. Dwight, we've got something for everyone here.
Yeah, but that 7 is not looking that lucky today.
No, that's probably not lucky 7 for this time of year, right?
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
There are lots of species, individual species and habitats that are suffering so significantly that they'll go to extinction.
The United Nations has released a new report about our ecosystem, and the results make for grim reading. We'll bring you that story after the break. The United Nations has issued a grim report on species extinction compiled by 145 experts from 50 countries over the past 3 years. The report says 1 million plant and animal species are at risk of disappearing forever, but there is a glimmer of hope. Cass Rusi explains.
Ahead of a United Nations report, demonstrators from the World Wildlife Fund staged a protest in Paris on the weekend, dressed in bumblebee costumes, a species that is under threat. The report itself says nature is in decline globally at rates unprecedented in our history, with 1 million species threatened with extinction, all because of human activities.
There are lots of species, individual species and habitats that are suffering so significantly that they'll go to extinction. Extinction is permanent, right?
He says in some cases the damage done could be irreversible.
In terms of collectively, societally, that's too hard to say. You know, it seems quite clear that we're not there yet, that we still do have time, but we don't have time to dither around.
The report offers a dire picture of nature in dramatic decline. Every corner of the planet, from insects, animals and plants to mammals in the ocean.
It's not just an environmental issue, it is an economic issue, a development issue, a security issue, a social, moral and ethical issue.
Some of the more threatened species include amphibians, mammals, marine mammals. Fish are exploited too, with more than 1/3 of fish stocks over-harvested. But the report does offer hope. Nature reserves and wilderness areas have helped protect land and oceans. Its authors believing it's not too late to make a difference. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
An environmental movement gaining strength in the U.S. has inspired a similar one north of the border. A Green New Deal Pact launched today across 4 Canadian cities.
We have always destroyed what we have
to create something new. And as the sky comes falling down around, some still don't know what to do.
Press conferences for the launch were held in Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, and Edmonton. A wide range of people are involved, including artists, youth groups, and Indigenous leaders. The nonpartisan coalition is asking to move away from fossil fuels and cut emissions in half by 2030 while protecting jobs.
The Green New Deal must halt oil and gas projects, restore the ecosystem, and ensure democratic control over the economy. The Green New Deal must ensure decent work, decent wages, full and permanent immigration status on arrival, comprehensive housing and transit systems. It must ensure racial justice, gender justice, and Indigenous self-determination.
Climate change is gearing up to be a hot topic in the upcoming federal election. Student-led climate strikes have been held nationwide every Friday for the last few months, with many young people calling on all levels of government to take action. A series of town halls for the Green New Deal Pact will be held across Canada in the coming weeks. Stay with us. We will be right back. Before we go, we want to give you one last update on that fire burning right now on Jones, just south of the Danforth. Emergency crews are working to put out the 4-alarm blaze. It started around 5 o'clock. The building is an adult school. Now, 7 workers were rescued from the roof. That roof is now completely compromised. Even the firefighters have been removed. There were also propane cylinders up there that couldn't be removed, so Toronto Fire is watching for that. It is looking like it is going to be a really long night for these fire crews.
Conditions are pretty bad. There's a lot of smoke inside, of course, and the extent of the fire, a building this age, once a fire takes hold, there's a lot of really dry, combustible material inside, so it's hard to, get it out in a hurry. And so we'll be here there'll be trucks here all night, I'm sure.
Over 30 trucks working on the scene right now. We will stay on top of this situation for you. You can check for updates on our website. Just head to cbc.ca/Toronto.